What do you see in the decision? Why do it and why do it now?
Yeah, Chris, I think those are very safe assumptions. There is no way that one can assume after today's strike that diplomacy is somehow going to flourish. I'm very concerned from an American perspective to see our ally strike another American ally. Remember, we have an air base there, Al Udeid, in Qatar, and the Qataris, flawed and all in these negotiations, have been the ones to make sure that hostages have come out, that deals have been accelerated, and they have worked in good faith with both the Trump team and the Biden team. So going forward, I think for the Israeli prime minister, he has to basically answer the hard question of, does he have a diplomatic strategy, or is it just completely off the table now? And it is purely the military operations, and frankly, no day after plan in the offing either. And I think we basically have the answer right now.
So when you have Qatar saying they're assessing whether negotiations are going to continue or not, Joel, what is going on, do you imagine, right now behind the scenes? Who's involved? What are those conversations like to at least preserve the hope that diplomacy could take hold?
Well, you know, Chris, you would hope that they would be calling the White House. Certainly the White House should be involved in this. But, you know, my fear is that, you know, the Trump team was not in the room in this decision either that Israel made, meaning they're standing along the side of the Israeli decision-making and not really influencing it at this stage. So the Qataris are probably going to speak with their Gulf allies. We're seeing statements coming out now from the Gulf states. A big concern is, what will this do to the Abraham Accord countries? What will this do to the American presence on Qatar? What kind of separate diplomatic negativity will we see as a result? And in fact, it looks like the strikes may not have even been effective at hitting their targets, which also, of course, really puts a black eye on Israeli military operations as well. So I just don't see the White House as weighing in right now in a manner that is effective on the diplomacy track. They're just sort of standing by and watching as there's continued disintegration in the region, as we just saw.
Joel Rubin.
State under Barack Obama, author of the briefing book on Substack. I subscribe. You should as well. Welcome back.
Thank you, Leland.
This is going to be a weird thing because you're going to agree with Trump that you're not happy that Israel did this, and I'm going to tell you they did the right thing.
You know,
and you're going to defend Donald Trump.
It's a little bit counterintuitive here, isn't it? Look, President Trump is right and wrong at the same time. I'll get both angles here. But no, look, it's never a good day when two core American allies get into a fight, or at least when one bombs the other, right? And so for the president...
But they didn't really bomb Qatar. Well, come on.
They did, I believe, kill at least one Qatari national. And so the president, he's right to say, why did I not get a heads up? It makes him look bad, right? It makes him look as if he's not in control of the situation.
Well, that's sort of the point, though, right? Isn't the Israelis trying to send the message that we do what we want? We don't have to ask
certainly,
somewhat a father figure for protection, or...
I mean, look, the Israelis, without a doubt, they want everybody to know that they are an independent actor, without a doubt. But the challenge here is that if you want to get the hostages out and the negotiation is underway and Steve Witkoff is negotiating and then immediately the negotiators get hit, I think that for the president and his team, they're going to say, well, how are we going to negotiate?
Because you're not going to negotiate with Hamas, and the Israelis are the one group that understands that the only way to end this war is to eliminate Hamas, not to try to have a deal with them that both the Qataris and Trump seem to think is possible.
You're not going to get me shedding a tear here about Hamas leaders getting hit, but I do think we need to be very careful. We, meaning the United States, need to be very careful that our allies who are out there, like Qatar, trying to negotiate, dealing with the issue, that we don't push them further away. The danger now here is
the Qataris aren't going anywhere.
Well, a strategic question is what comes next, right? What happens with the Gulf? What does this mean for the Abraham Accords? What does this mean for Israel's ability to negotiate with Saudi Arabia? These are big, challenging questions.
Look, I hear you, but I remember those very same questions after Israel killed Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon, the very same questions after Israel launched a much broader offensive against Hezbollah. Same thing when Israel kept going in harder and harder against Hamas in Gaza. Same thing when Israel started a war directly with Iran in a bombing campaign, an overt bombing campaign.
Actions which I supported.
Right, and guess what? The Middle East is a safer place because of it.
It is, but we're still going to need to get some kind of end of this war in Gaza and some kind of day-after plan. And that means that these allies like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and others are going to be part of the solution. And so what you want is whatever move is made, like we saw today, has to be part of a bigger strategy. And I fear that that's where the problem is now heading.
So what you're saying the Israelis don't have a strategy.
Not an end state.
This is Prime Minister Netanyahu. Take a listen.
They perpetrated the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Now, they were meeting in the same place, exactly the same place, where they celebrated this savagery almost 2 years ago. At the beginning of the war, I promised that Israel would reach those who perpetrated this horror. And today, Israel and I have kept that promise.
And that's bad. Why?
Well, first of all, we don't know if it was an effective strike, and that's a big problem, right? If you're going to strike and you're going to try to hit the king, you better kill the king. And so that's part A.
He tried to kill Khalid Mashal once before. It didn't work out too well for him back in the 90s.
And remember, the Hezbollah strikes, it took decades of planning, or more than a decade of intelligence gathering. But look, I'm not going to sit here and say that Hamas should not be targeted. And the Hamas leadership, they know what they're risking when they plan and organize together. All that said, there needs to be a negotiated outcome to kill this war, to end this war. And well, that's why
remember how World War II ended? Remember how World War II ended?
Ultimately, a surrender.
Unconditional surrender.
And somebody will have to surrender. Someone will have to surrender. And we still need to get these hostages out. And I do hope that the president, he sees this now, just like with India and Pakistan, right? Similar dynamic. Two American allies fighting. This is an opportunity for President Trump, if he takes this opportunity to get in a way that can lean in to get Hamas to agree to a ceasefire that gets all hostages out. I think that was part of the trigger. But this is a window.
I am unquestionably on the side of getting hostages out. Yeah. Is there not a question, though, for Israel, at what cost? Because if you have a ceasefire, we know that if Hamas is allowed to stay in the Gaza Strip, that Hamas is going to reconstitute in the Gaza Strip. And the Israelis are basically saying we can't allow that to happen.
You know, this
so you're talking about a peace deal that's not going to exist. Therefore, you keep killing Hamas.
Well, there's a big battle politically inside of Israel. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis are protesting, saying we do need to get these hostages out. There's an ethos in Israel that no Israeli should be left behind. And I fear that that's now being challenged. And the Israeli people in the streets are saying we can't let that happen. We got to get them home. And I think the attitude is we're going to probably continue to have to fight Hamas for many more years, regardless, but get these hostages out.
Okay. I seem to think that you are now on the side of President Trump, which I think is an interesting
I'm on the side of good policy. And I hope that the president succeeds in getting a ceasefire and getting hostages out and getting Hamas out of power. That I would cheer for.
All right. My friend,
thanks,
good to see you. Thank you. Tomorrow, after On Balance, hosting a 1-hour